welcome to January 2022 edition of our Ask a Specialist series. My name is Teal Radford, and I'm a speech and language pathologist at Las Cumbres Community Services. The topic of today's Ask a Specialist video is on bilingual or multilingual language development. We'll be answering a variety of questions related to this topic, such as how does language develop differently when a child is learning more than one first language? We'll review some methods for teaching your child to be bilingual, and answer some frequently asked questions like, why does my child understand both languages but prefer speaking English? Really common. So in this Ask a Specialist workshop, we'll answer these questions and more. Las Cumbres Community Services began in Los Alamos County 50 years ago now. We currently provide a wide range of services for families in Santa Fe, Rio Arriba, Taos, and Los Alamos counties. You can check out our website for a list of services that we provide specifically in each county, and all services are completely free of charge. Thanks to a grant from Los Alamos County, we were recently able to expand our services in Los Alamos County, including the rental of a physical space for our Las Cumbres employees and clients to use in Los Alamos, and also including this Ask a Specialist series. So thank you, Los Alamos County. As I mentioned, you can visit our website, lascumbres-nm.org/askaspecialist, to see upcoming workshops, to find links to previous workshops. Those are all posted on YouTube, to view a form where you can fill out with some suggestions for future topics. All of that can be found at the Ask a Specialist page at lascumbres-nm.org. So please go there to give us your ideas for future workshop topics. Las Cumbres also hosts dialectical behavior therapy skills group every Thursday from 1 to 2 p.m. This is a great group where you can participate in building stress and crisis management skills. Again, like everything else Las Cumbres offers, it's completely free for anyone in the community to hop on, and can be a really valuable resource. These Ask a Specialist workshops take place once a month on the second Friday of the month from 10 to 11 a.m. So put that in your calendar ongoing. We have presented on a variety of topics in the past, like gross motor development, some fine motor skills, sensory, feeding issues, communication milestones. We have a lot in our archives at this point. We are posting in the chat box right now a survey that we hope you'll fill out, giving us feedback on today's presentation, and also providing us with some feedback about what might be helpful in future presentations. So I wanted to start this conversation about raising bilingual kids with a little description of current trends, what's going on in the US and the world when it comes to bilingualism. So I think these statistics are really interesting. 22% of children in the United States, which is slightly more than 12 million kids total, speak a language other than English at home. So 22% of US kids are bilingual. This rate is rising. So it has risen by 2% in the last decade. So America is becoming more and more bilingual. There's an old joke that I heard that goes like this. Hey Teal, what do you call a kid who speaks 3 languages? Multilingual. Okay, what do you call a kid who speaks 2 languages? Bilingual. What do you call a kid who speaks just 1 language? Not monolingual, we call them American. So no offense, America, we're working on it. We're building our numbers up. But worldwide, 43% of world citizens are bilingual or speak 2 languages, compared to that 22% in the US. So in other countries, it's way more common to teach your kid more than one language than we might be used to in American culture. Worldwide, 40% of world citizens are monolingual. I myself fall in that category, although I've spent a lot of my adult life trying to learn other languages. I'm definitely not natively fluent in any language besides English. And only 13% are multilingual. Because I was interested, I looked up statistics for what the most multilingual countries in the world were. And the winner was Luxembourg at 98% bilingual or multilingual. In Latvia, 95% of people can speak another language in addition to their native tongue. The Netherlands, 94%, Malta, 93%, Slovenia and Lithuania, 92%, and Sweden, 91%. So in certain countries, it is almost expected that your child will learn more than one language. So from this information, we really can see that almost any baby can learn more than one language. Another fun fact, Ziad Fazah, born in Liberia and brought up in Beirut, now living in Brazil, is the world's greatest living polyglot. This man speaks a total of 59 world languages. And I think he went in the Guinness Book of World Records 1996 as being able to converse with native speakers of 59 different world languages. So that's pretty cool. That's the most we've heard of so far. So a key idea behind your desire to raise a bilingual baby is this reassurance that babies can learn more than one language at a time. In fact, their brains are more flexible than ours are. So now when they're young is actually the ideal time to teach more than one language. Countries like Luxembourg and Sweden show us that almost any baby can learn more than one language. So don't be afraid to set out with this goal. You're in good company. Bilingualism has correlations with all kinds of positive outcomes. I think it's such a gift to teach your child to be able to communicate in more than just one language. First of all, it allows them to connect and communicate freely with extended family or friends who may speak that second language. There are increased career opportunities, greater cultural awareness, obviously the ability to be a chameleon and fit in lots of different cultures and countries is a huge asset personally and professionally in a lot of cases. Learning a couple different languages as a baby will make it easier for you to learn additional related languages in the future. There's an increased ability to think flexibly. We'll talk about this just a little bit more on the next slide, and an increased ability to focus and stay cognitively sharp. All good things. So this page gets a little bit more into the details of some of the things that I mentioned. So bilinguals have average higher salary than monolinguals in a lot of different business settings. Bilingual men earn 3.6% and bilingual women earn 6.6% more than those who speak English only. Bilingual workers earn 5 to 20% more than those who speak only one language. And bilinguals earn an average of $7,000 more per year than their monolingual peers. These are all good things. It's a huge career asset to be able to help translate and be a cultural broker for many companies across the world, especially as our world continues to globalize. I think this advantage will only continue to grow for bilingual and multilingual speakers. More job opportunities. 34% of recruiters in Northern America either strongly agree or somewhat agree that being bilingual is crucial to succeed in today's business environment. Employment of interpreters and translators is projected to grow 46% by this year. Here we are in 2022. So again, a huge advantage business-wise. Living longer and healthier lives. Research has shown that there are many health benefits to being bilingual. Notably, speaking more than one language slows the brain's aging process. Bilingual show Alzheimer's symptoms 5 or 6 years later than those who spoke only one language on average. Bilingual children show reduced levels of anxiety, loneliness, and low self-esteem, and bilingual adults have denser gray matter compared to monolingual adults. This gray matter is a proxy for cognitive ability. Finally, some other cognitive benefits. Children who grow up learning to speak 2 languages are better at switching between tasks than children who learn to speak only 1 language. Adults who've been bilingual since they were children have better cognitive flexibility than those who know how to speak only 1 language. So cognitive flexibility refers to the ability to think about new solutions or new ways of understanding a problem and solutions. And students who completed at least 4 years of foreign language study scored more than 100 points higher on each section of the SAT. So all kinds of positive benefits. As we'll get into, there are certain challenges that come along with the tedious process of teaching a child to be bilingual, because it's not particularly easy. But all of these outcomes are just so valuable. I know I already said it, but I think it's true. It's one of the greatest gifts you can give your kids. I wish that I had learned how to speak 1 or more other languages when I was really young, because it's the superpower I wish that I had. So if you find yourself in a position to teach your baby to be bilingual, please go for it. They will thank you later. So this is what we know about the trajectory of a baby who is trying to learn more than 1 language. And this is the part that feels frustrating or daunting to parents, I think. Babies who are learning more than 1 language are more likely to spend longer listening and understanding words in either or both languages before they try to speak. So they're spending longer in the receptive phase of language acquisition before they're ready for the expressive phase. So obviously this does sometimes result in a small temporary delay in language milestones compared with monolingual babies. So every parent needs to make this decision for themselves. In my opinion, the benefits of multilingualism far outweigh the challenges, but these are the challenges. So it's something that we have to take into consideration when you're deciding as a parent how to go about teaching your baby to communicate, and with whom and in what language. So it's, as I stated before, learning 2 languages simultaneously takes longer than learning just 1. That's something you have to prepare yourself for. It is also considered completely normal for a bilingual child to lag slightly behind their multilingual peers when it comes to specifically grammar and vocab development. So vocab development is pretty much how toddlers communicate. They're not necessarily putting together big sentences. They're using specific vocab words. So we really do expect that there will be a delay with your bilingual baby in being able to come up with the vocab words to ask for what they need, or to point out the window and share with you what they're seeing walking by outside. The more languages children are exposed to early on, the longer it may take them to speak overall, again, spending longer in this receptive listening phase. But when they do start speaking, rest assured that they'll be able to speak using all of the languages that they've been listening to for so long. Every bilingual child is unique. So coming up with a formula or a timeline for any individual is probably not the best or most fruitful idea. Learning 2 languages depends on the amount and type of practice your child gets. The amount of exposure obviously influences the rate of acquisition. So the more you expose your child, the more opportunities you give them to hear each language, the quicker they're going to pick that language up, and the more quickly they'll feel comfortable listening to and speaking in that language. Here are some general guidelines. Most bilingual children speak their first words by the time they're a year old. For your reference, that is a similar statistic for monolingual children. By age 2, most bilingual children can use 2-word phrases. Phrases like my ball or more juice could be in one or both languages. So again, this is not far off from what we would expect for a typical monolingual child. But like everything else, there's a wide range of what's considered normal. So if you have a 1 or a 2-year-old who's learning more than one language and not hitting these milestones, I wouldn't worry too much about it. I would recommend you to start working with a speech language pathologist if you have access to one through early intervention so that you can start getting some ideas. There are definitely ways we can better support kids to start using more vocab and more advanced language. But we shouldn't be surprised to see that there's a little bit of a delay here. From time to time, bilingual children might mix grammatical rules. They might use words from both languages in the same sentence. This is a totally normal part of becoming bilingual. Kids are figuring out with whom can I use this language versus this one? How, can I mix these words together into a Spanglish sentence? Things like that are totally expected. And some children, as we discussed, might not talk much when they start using that second language. The silent period can last for several months. This is normal. It's expected. Don't worry too much about it. These are things we would expect to see. Now we're going to get into an overview of several of the formulas for how to approach teaching your child to be bilingual. There are obviously many different ways to do this. There is no one size fits all. I just want to introduce you to a couple different ideas as kind of a springboard for a discussion with your family about which one might work the best for you and any other caregivers that are going to be influencing the child's language development. So one of the most popular and common methods is called one parent, one language. In this method, we would assume that there are 2 parents in the picture and that each one has a different native language. So if dad speaks Spanish and mom speaks English, each parent would just interact with their child in whatever their native language is. This way, depending on who they're interacting with, children are hearing parallel examples of similar phrases in both languages. So one parent, one language exposes your child to 2 different languages kind of simultaneously. And this is a really popular method because we know how important it is that your baby hears a native accent within a natural context. I've written here in this yellow box down at the bottom. This is kind of like the thing we want to keep in mind above everything else, that ideally we want babies exposed to a native speaker within a natural context for each language. This lets them hear the nuances of pronunciation, of grammar. We know that babies as young as 6 months can differentiate the sounds specific to their language and will pay more attention to words spoken in that native accent that they recognize as their caregivers. So we really know that it's important to expose kids to the sounds of the languages that we want them to eventually speak, even before 6 months of age. So one parent, one language, that's our first method. The other very popular method is called the minority language at home method. So this method kind of correlates to bullet point 2 here. Use only one language at home. Your child can learn the second language when they start going to school. So the minority language at home model encourages parents to use that minority language or the language that's spoken not commonly in their community. So in this model, majority language would be, in the United States would be English, majority language. That's what your kid hears when they go out to the store, when they go to daycare, when they go to preschool, when they go to school, what they hear on TV, what they hear on the street, on the radio. They know that this is the majority language of their community. And the minority language would be the language that you are trying to introduce. Usually this is maybe a parent's native language. So this method really assumes that your child is going to pick up that majority language much more easily from this community exposure. And I have seen this a lot in my work as an early intervention speech therapist. Kids are always more drawn or more apt to use the language that they hear a lot of other people using around them. So I think this is a really smart method because you're really focusing on teaching that minority language, the less common language in the early years at home before they start school. And that way they can use it with you and any other caregivers and family at home. And then as they emerge more and more into the community, they'll pick up that majority language much more easily, but you'll already have that first language down solid. And then of course, using either of these two methods, one parent, one language, or minority language at home, just giving your child many chances to hear and practice both languages throughout the day. As we said before, we know that the amount of exposure influences the rate of acquisition. So the more time they can spend listening to or using a language, the faster they're going to grow in their development of that language. All the same strategies that we use with a monolingual baby to promote language development will also help your baby and you in your bilingual journey. So a lot of what we can do to help your baby in learning that second language are things you might already be doing, but can start doing with more intentionality or greater frequency. And then just make sure that you're doing them in both languages or in the minority language, if that's the method that you are using. So make sure that you're using books with your child. You can read to them in both languages. Check out your local library. Look for books on the internet. There is obviously growing access to translated children's books, and having the same book in both languages might be really helpful in the consistency needed to teach your baby to understand. So if you can have brown bear, and in English and in Spanish or whatever other language you're teaching them, that's really going to help them make the connection, like, oh, I know what this word means, I know what this page means, and then map meaning onto the words that they're hearing as they listen and watch you read that book. Music is another great way to introduce a second language to your child. One of the reasons music is such a valuable language teaching tool is the repetition of a song. So when we sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, it has a very finite number of words. We have little actions, twinkle, twinkle, little star, and the actions give clues about what the words mean. And singing is also fun. It's super important when you are teaching a baby, toddler, or young child that your teaching methods are fun. Babies this age learn through play. We are not going to be doing flashcards to teach them how to say cat in Spanish. We're going to be singing songs or playing games or finding really funny, interesting ways to label that word and concept in real life. So music is a really awesome method. You can find playlists of songs. And again, as I mentioned with books, being able to sing the same songs in two different languages can be a really great way to mirror the meaning in both versions. Of course, TV and videos are available in many different languages, and there's some really good programs that teach basic vocab, numbers, letters, colors, simple words that they might need to request things or to share ideas and games with you. Finally, of course, there are formal language programs. You can send your kid to a bilingual preschool. You could hire a bilingual nanny. There are bilingual camps that give your children a chance to use both languages in a really rewarding social setting. So being able to practice that minority language with peers can feel really important to kids who are learning to be bilingual. It's a huge motivator when they see that other kids their age are using it, or that this second language can really get them something that they want. Sometimes they can feel more motivated. And then of course, strategies like labeling everything, talking to your baby all day in whatever your native language is, labeling and reducing the output of what you are labeling things with to only 1 or 2 words at a time is a strategy that I recommend all the time to parents of monolingual and also bilingual kids. So think about how you can label things all day long for your kid. You're pointing to the orange and saying orange. You hear the dog barking outside and you say, oh, dog. So you're just mapping on for them the word that applies to all these different concrete nouns and objects in their environment. Another good strategy for teaching both monolingual and bilingual kids to use words in either language is to set up temptation situations where you have their favorite snack and you might give them the first bite for free and then start tempting them. Oh, do you want the cracker? Say cracker. And see if you can get them maybe using their voice to repeat some words in one or both languages that way. Temptation can be really powerful for kids. And again, we always want to keep temptation situations fun. This should not be like a do or die situation, or sometimes it can become like a power struggle. We never need to take it to that level for a young child or a toddler. We just want to keep it fun and kind of see how far we can push them to try something new. And finally, as I mentioned, being really silly, playful, and funny when you're presenting these words makes your teaching so much more memorable. When we're being funny, when we're being animated and expressive, kids are more interested to look at us and pay attention to us for longer. And what we're doing and saying is also more memorable when we're being really dramatic and expressive. So that's a really important secret ingredient to always keep in the mix. Okay, so finally, I'm going to go through some of the most frequently asked questions that I get as an early intervention speech therapist in Los Alamos County. Los Alamos, New Mexico is notorious for drawing families from all over the world because of the national lab in Los Alamos. So I get the lovely opportunity to work with a lot of bilingual children, and these are some of the most common questions and concerns that are shared with me by parents. So the first bubble says, my baby understands but doesn't speak my native language. Why won't she talk? I had brought this up a little bit previously, but this is so common. And my response is just that babies are very aware of what language is being used around them. Many toddlers and young children prefer fitting in by using that majority language. They hear it on the playground, they hear it at school, they hear it on TV, they hear it on the radio. They are aware in the case of Los Alamos, that English is the language being used by the majority of community members. And so a lot of kids do prefer to kind of fit into that community by using English. So a lot of times these kids will understand what their parents are saying to them in their native language, but they kind of resist using that language themselves. What I always tell parents is that if your kid is understanding in your native language, the biggest hurdle has already been crossed. Receptive language is the most important foundation for later expressive language use. So know that if they are understanding, that's a really good sign that they will be able to speak in the future if you continue to present opportunities and continue to work on these things with them. This is pretty typical of bilingual language development if you ask me. I think the most important thing you can do is continue to model and work on presenting activities and games in the second language, and find opportunities to allow your child to practice with peers or family members in that minority language, so that they can feel the reward of what it feels like to connect, and they can really kind of make the connection in their mind of why is the second language valuable to me? Where does it get me? What can I do with it? So that's my response to this first question. It's very, very, very common that even toddlers will understand two languages, but just prefer responding in English only. And that is okay. Don't let this one trip you up or freak you out. Keep doing what you're doing. My second frequently asked question reads, my baby is doing early intervention for language delay. Would it help for me to start focusing on only one language? So this question is asking, my baby's language is delayed. Should I forget this bilingual thing? Is it just making it too difficult for her? And can she learn a language faster if I stop using my second language with her? And my response to this question is that a true language delay shows up in both languages. So you're not doing your child any favors by removing one of the language that you're teaching, one of the languages that you're teaching. You're really just removing that opportunity for them to express themselves in either language. Maybe try focusing on using whatever language is easier for a particular concept. So for example, the word for grape in Spanish is uva. Just given the speech sounds that are needed to produce uva versus grape, that G sound can be a little bit hard. Your child might find it easier to use uva than grape at a certain stage of their speech and language development. So you might want to think about how you can be intentional about choosing which word am I going to work on and practice with them. But it's totally not necessary. It's definitely not going to fix your child's language delay to only teach them one language. I think you're doing them a disservice, and it's definitely coming from the right place. I understand some of the logic behind why parents feel this way, but again, I just want to reassure you that removing a language is not going to fix the language delay. So we just want to continue working on supporting language development in both languages if this is the case. There's some research that came out recently that showed that even if a kid has a diagnosis like autism, Down syndrome, hearing loss, developmental delays, that these kids can learn two languages at the same rate and with the same success as matched peers with similar diagnoses who are learning only one language. So this really shows that despite the fact that we might not expect a kid with a diagnosis of Down syndrome, sometimes they can be very verbal and sometimes they're less verbal, but how many languages they're learning doesn't actually affect how verbal they will become in one or both languages. So please, if you have the ability to teach your child more than one language, I want to give you the confidence to really know that you're doing the best thing for them if you do decide to do that.
I also wanted to mention that if your child is a bilingual learner or speaks only another language and you have concerns about delayed speech or language development, Las Cumbres can help you determine if your child's language is delayed and provide services, including coaching you and other caregivers on how to use strategies to promote speech and language development.
So that concludes all the information I wanted to share with you guys in today's presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat box, answer any questions you might have. If you have any feedback, drop it in the chat box. Please, if you have a chance, click on and fill out our survey. And thank you for attending today's Ask a Specialist workshop. We hope to see you at future events. Bye.